All right, let's dive into a piece of tech history that's kind of been lost to time. We're talking about a ghost in the machine, a smartphone that was both a perfect copy and, in its own weird way, a total legend. This is the story of a knockoff phone that had a surprisingly massive impact. So on one side, you have the icon, the Samsung Galaxy S3. Back in its day, this was the phone to have. It was sleek, it was powerful, and yeah, it was expensive. And then, on the other side, you have this thing, its mysterious doppelganger, the Feiteng I9300. I mean, it sure looked apart, right? But the real question is, what was actually going on under the hood?
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to rewind the clock. Our story starts in the shadow of a tech giant. We're going back to 2012, a time when one phone was just completely dominating the market. And in doing so, it accidentally created the perfect environment for its counterfeit twin to be born.
So here's the timeline. 2012, the Galaxy S3 is an absolute smash hit, flying off the shelves all over the world. But at the exact same time, in China's Shanghai factories, this whole world of workshops known for copying and riffing on popular electronics, something else is spinning up. And their goal? It was simple, but kind of audacious. Build a phone that looks 100% identical to the S3, but sell it for just a tiny fraction of the price.
Now, this is where the story gets, well, kind of weird. You'd think the plan would be to just make one consistent, reliable copy, but the reality was so much stranger. Behind that seemingly impressive spec sheet was a whole world of absolute chaos.
And you can see why people were tempted. I mean, on paper, the promise was incredible. You were getting a big 4.7-inch screen, a modern version of Android, an 8-megapixel camera, and even a dual-core processor. For the price they were asking, it sounded like the deal of a lifetime.
But here's the real twist, the big catch. That model number, I9300, it didn't actually point to one specific single phone. Nope, it was more like a concept, an idea. You had all these different factories building their own version of an I9300, using whatever parts they could get their hands on that week.
And this right here shows you just how wild that got. Buying one of these phones was literally a hardware lottery. You know, you'd roll the dice. Maybe, just maybe, you'd get lucky and get the good one with a real dual-core chip. Or maybe you'd get a single-core version with 3G that barely worked. Or you could end up with a bottom-of-the-barrel version with a cheap Spreadtrum chip that had no 3G at all. You just never knew what was going to show up in the box.
So what did this all mean for the people who actually bought them? Let's talk about the user's gamble, the day-to-day reality of owning a phone that looked like $1 million but, performed like anything but.
Yeah, let's forget the specs and the factories for a second. What was the actual, real-world experience of having this phone in your pocket every single day?
Well, it was a life of constant compromise. Sure, it looked the part from 6 feet away, but get up close, the screen was grainy and low-res. The camera took pictures that were just full of noise. The battery would die on you in a few hours, and the whole thing was fragile and just packed with software bugs. It was an imitation that really tested your patience.
And that led to the ultimate risk. To try and fix all those bugs, owners would go hunting on these obscure internet forums for new software to install. But since every phone was different, if you flashed the wrong file, a file meant for a slightly different set of hardware, you could kill the phone permanently. It would become as useful as a brick. And yeah, that's exactly where the term bricking your phone comes from.
But here's where our story takes a really surprising turn. Because despite all of these flaws, all the frustrations, all the risks, this little imperfect phone actually has a really important and positive legacy, something nobody could have seen coming.
Because for all of its problems, the Feiteng I9300 had one huge thing going for it. It was cheap, it was accessible, and for thousands upon thousands of people around the world who could never dream of affording a real Galaxy S3, this clone, this was their very first big-screen smartphone. Think of it like this. It was an imperfect key. The kind that's a bit bent and you have to jiggle it in the lock for a minute. It's frustrating, but eventually it clicks. And that door to the entire Android world, to apps, to the internet, to everything, it swings wide open. That's what this phone was.
So what happened to it? Where did it go? Well, like a lot of these Shanghai products, it just kind of faded away. It became a true ghost in the machine. A phone that was everywhere one day and then, suddenly, was just nowhere.
And when it vanished, it left almost nothing behind. No official instruction manuals, no company archives, definitely no customer support. It was just gone. So all that's left of it today are these little digital breadcrumbs. A few blurry photos on old tech blogs, some forgotten posts on forums that haven't been active in a decade, and of course, the memories of all the people who took a gamble on it.
So look, let's be totally clear. The Feiteng I9300 was not a great phone, not by a long shot, but its story is about so much more than that. It represents this wild, chaotic moment in time when raw imitation, a bit of creativity, and a whole lot of experimentation all just collided.
In the end, it's the perfect example of a small device with a surprisingly big story. A counterfeit phone that, for a little while, became a genuine key to the digital world for thousands. A true ghost in the machine.